everybody. Welcome to Crack a Pack Tuesday, number 32 on the Mana League. I'm John, as always, and it's time for some more Battle for Zendiakr with Mr. Ulamog's spoiler on the front. As always, we're going to crack this pack. We're going to go through the cards in there and find out what we would take. Pack one, pick one, if this was a draft. Up first, we've got ourselves an Oracle of Dust. 4 and a blue for a creature Eldrazi Processor. It's a 3/5. It's got Devoid, of course, and you can pay 2 to process and loot. So you get to draw a card and then discard a card. I have had this guy actually do a fair bit of use in the heavy controlling blue-black ingest control deck. It's a 3/5. It blocks a ton of stuff on the ground. Not quite as well as Fortified Ramparts does, but just as well as Tide Drifter does. The power actually stops some things from trying to get quote-unquote free attacks. And the looting is just great. If you do have a Mist Intruder or a Salvage Drone or anything that's ingested a bunch of stuff at the start of the game, you're going to get a whole bunch of loot value off of this. I really like Oracle of Dust, but it is kind of the last piece of the blue-black process ingest control deck. You don't take this to go into that deck. You don't even take this when you're getting into that deck. You take this like late pack 2 or even pack 3 when you know you're in that deck. So be careful. This is one of those cards that's really good in a couple of certain decks and not that great in the rest. So take this if you know you should be taking it, but otherwise stay away and certainly not first pick. Next up, we have Altar's Reap. This is 1 and a black for an instant as an additional cost to cast. Altar's Reap. Sacrifice a creature. Draw 2 cards. This is good sort of insurance if your creature is going to get completely disregarded or they're going to die in a surprise combat trick, combat, etc. You can kill it yourself and get 2 cards out of it, which is totally fine value. I wouldn't really do this purely to get a Zulaport Cutthroat trigger or something like that, but it is sort of good insurance. It's a fine card. If you're in black and you have the space for it, I would put it in, but it's certainly not a high pick and certainly not an auto include either. Next up, we've got Plummet. This is a sideboard card. 1 and a green for an instant. Destroy target creature with flying. This is not a main deck Plummet format. Do not put this in your main deck. That is bad news. If after game 1 you saw a flying threat that you just can't handle, you saw a flying bomb, absolutely throw this in your side or in your deck out of your sideboard, but do not main deck this card. Dragons arguably was a flying creature destruction main deck format, but this one I just do not think it is. So be careful with Plummet. Keep it in your sideboard. Take it late. Next up, we've got Korra Home Guide. 1 and a blue for a creature Merfolk Scout ally. It's a 2/1. 4 and a blue. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Interesting card. It's a 2/1 for 2, which is okay. Not typically what blue wants. That's more of a white thing, more of a red thing, more of a black thing. The ability is kind of cool. That's very blue. It does come up now and then, but it has to be in a very specific deck. And unfortunately, the deck that wants it, the late game blue deck, doesn't want this card. It doesn't want a 2/1 for 2. So it's kind of conflicted. It's an ally randomly. I don't think I've ever seen it trigger a rally effect. So Korra Home Guide's just kind of there. If you have to play it, you have to play it, but I don't recommend it. It's just been very, very underwhelming for me. Next up, we've got Volcanic Upheaval. This is 3 and a red for an instant. Destroy target land. This is another card like Plummet where I don't think you should ever be main decking this card. It's just not that great. If you use this to just kill a normal land, you're really going to fall behind pretty fast. I would only side this in if I saw a man land or if I saw a lot of Awaken going on my opponent's side of the board. I'm talking 2, if not 3 separate Awaken spells. Then I might side this in. But beyond that, this is going to stay in the sideboard for basically ever, and certainly is not a first pick card. Next up, we've got Stonehaven Medic. This is a 1 and a white creature core cleric. It's a 1/3, and you can pay a white and tap it to gain a life. It's an okay blocker, but it's certainly not the best blocker. It's going to get outclassed very fast. The 1 life gain is not enough to justify playing this usually. If you are heavy in the black-white life gain deck, then you could consider it. This does combo kind of well with Serene Steward or with Nirkana Assassin or anything like that that gets something or does something when you gain life. But even there, this is still probably the weakest part of that deck and still cuttable, even though there is that synergy in combo, but certainly not first pickable. Next up, we've got Ghostly Sentinel. This is arguably the first pickable card so far in this pack, and even it's not what I would consider first pickable. 4 and a white for a creature, Core Spirit. It's got flying, it's got vigilance, and it's a 3/3. It's just a fine card. It's slightly expensive, but it's a 3/3 flying vigilance. There's not flying everywhere in this format. That's why Plummet's not a main deckable card. And so this may just win you the game. It is relatively easy to deal with. Complete Disregard hits it, Touch of the Void hits it, almost all removal hits it. But it's just fine. I would never first pick it, despite it being the best card we've had so far, but I would include it in an awful lot of my white decks, and especially the Blue-White Flyers deck. Slightly better, we've got a Benthic Infiltrator, 2 and a blue for a creature Eldrazi drone. It's a 1/4, it's got Ingest, and it can't be blocked. I was a little bit down on this card when I first saw it, but it turns out it's actually just decent, and it super enables the Blue-Black Ingest Process deck, which is a really good deck. Possibly one of my favorites in the format. Yeah, you just get through for damage with this thing, and slightly more importantly, you get to ingest, which turns on your processors. I don't think every blue deck wants this. Blue-White Flyers doesn't really care about this card. Blue aggro, if it exists, doesn't really care about this card. But Blue-Red Colorless certainly cares about this card. Blue-Black Ingest certainly cares about this card. I think it is pretty good, and I think it is very highly pickable. I don't quite think it pushes you into either of those archetypes, but it certainly is a highish pick in those archetypes. Next up, we've got Vestige of Emrakul. 3 and a red for a creature Eldrazi drone. Devoid, Trample, 3/4. This is just an all-around solid, fine card. It plays the best in Blue-Red Colorless, where maybe this becomes a 4/4, or maybe it becomes a 3/5. Maybe it enables some other things, your Nettle drones, or something like that. Yeah, it's just a totally fine card. It's filler in those decks. In any other red deck, it's slightly more filler. A deck where it's just going to be a 3/4 trample the entire match, it's still okay, but it's not exciting. It's not first pickable. It's not highly pickable, but it's there if you kind of want it, and I don't think anybody needs it exactly. Gideon's Reproach. Here's a good card. This blows me out game after game after game. 1 and a white for an instant. Gideon's Reproach deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. I can't count the number of times where I've attacked and my creature just died, or I've blocked and my creature just died. This kills a ton of stuff in the format. The fact that it is only 1 and a white makes it really, really, really good. It's probably the weakest of the removal in the set. It's no Complete Disregard. It's no Touch of the Void. It's not even really on par with Outnumber in my opinion, but it is still pretty darn solid. I don't quite think I would want to first pick it, although this pack is weak so far, but I would pretty highly pick it, and I would consider starting to edge into white if I did see it past me. On to the uncommons. What do we've got? We've got an Expedition Envoy, pretty boring. Single white for a 2/1. And it's an ally, of course. That's important. I love these stats. I do love 2/1s for a single white. That is a key cornerstone of the white weenie decks. This really, really helps out in allies. It's just a pretty solid card. It does get a little bit weaker in the late game, where it just kind of becomes nothing but a rally trigger. It doesn't become a threat or something that's even going to surround the board. But I do like this card. I would never first pick it, but I would very highly pick it were I in white. Basically anything. Well, the misses just keep coming. Dampening Pulse, 3 and a blue for an enchantment. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-0. Don't play this card. It's bad. It's really bad. I've had it played against me, and it's annoying, but I still have always gotten through it. You know, you make my 1X's 0X's. That kind of sucks, but you wasted a card slot and 4 mana and a turn on playing this, and you're just going to die 4 or 5 turns later than normal. It's not a good card. I see no purpose in ever playing this. Don't pick this card. Don't play this card. It's awful. Infused with Elements. This is a weak pack. 3 and a green for an instant. Converge. Put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast Infuse with the elements. That creature gains trample until end of turn. So normally this is going to be 2 +1/+1 counters. Sometimes it might be 3. Rarely it'll be 4. It's instant speed, which is decent. It's kind of like Dragon Scale Boon most of the time, except it doesn't on-tap, it gives trample. It's a totally fine combat trick. I do like it, but it's nowhere near first pickable. This is what you take if you're in green and you get it passed to you probably like 5th, 6th pick or so. Not very exciting. Let's see if the rare can save this pack. Well, it kind of does. EndlessOne costs X. It's a 0/0. EndlessOne enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. This is a 1/1 for 1, a 2/2 for 2, a 10/10 for 10, a 7 for 7, a 7/7 for 7. It's whatever you want it, which is great because that means that it really kind of is whatever you want at any point in the game. If you want a 2/2 for 2, you got a 2/2 for 2. If you want a 6/6 for 6, you got a 6/6 for 6. It doesn't have vigilance, it doesn't have trample, it doesn't have anything on it. It is a totally vanilla creature, but the versatility of it is just totally fine. Obviously shines in colorless matters decks where maybe it gets an extra toughness or an extra power or it triggers things. Just a totally solid card. And of course it goes in every single deck, which is nice. It doesn't have to be in the ramp deck. It doesn't have to be in the colorless deck. Fits everywhere. EndlessOne sort of saved the pack. Any foil? No, we got nothing else. So this pack is EndlessOne, Gideon's Reproach, and I guess Benthic Infiltrator, ? Get out of there, Infiltrator, get out of there, Reproach. We're taking EndlessOne. It's by far the best card in this pack, and that's saying something. Yeah, as I just finished saying, it goes in every single deck. It's exactly what you want, where you want it, when you want it. You can't get much better than, well, you can get a lot better than that, but in this pack, you can't get that much better. Definitely let me know what you would have taken. Would you have taken the EndlessOne? Is there something else in this pile of garbage that you would have taken? Let me know in the comments down below. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at the Mana Leak. That's LEEK, like the vegetable, not the card. And you can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/themanaleak. You've already found me here on YouTube. Make use of that comment section down below and like and subscribe my videos if you enjoy them. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all next time.